Imagine losing your job today, like right now.
Oh, man.
You get the email or you get called into one of those sterile conference rooms and it's just over.
A nightmare scenario.
It really is.
Yeah.
So you go home, you open up your banking app to figure out your next move, and you do the math. And you realize with this awful sinking feeling in your stomach that the cash you actually have on hand will let you survive for exactly 12 days.
Wow. Not 12 weeks.
No, 12 days. And, if that scenario makes your heart rate spike just listening to it, you are definitely not alone. I'll be your host, guiding us through these sources.
And I'll be the expert breaking down the research with you.
Right, so jumping right in. Our source material today points out this massive study showing that over half of adults couldn't even cover a $1,000 emergency with savings. For the vast majority of people, financial ruin is literally just a dozen days away.
It is terrifying. But I think the most alarming part isn't just the lack of funds, it's the lack of awareness. We're looking at this narrative today of a remarkably average worker, like someone who makes a decent living, goes to work, pays their bills on time, and they genuinely walk around believing they're financially stable.
Because they haven't been tested yet.
Exactly. They think they're doing everything right, simply because a disaster hasn't forced them to, test that stability.
They're basically mistaking luck for preparation.
Perfectly stated. Yeah, they have a job, an income, a vague plan for the future. But when industry layoffs finally hit their department, within a single month, this person who thought they were squarely middle class is suddenly forced to borrow money.
At those awful predatory interest rates, right?
Right, just to cover rent. The speed at which a seemingly solid life can just completely unravel when you don't have a buffer, that is the core focus of the research we're analyzing today.
Which means, I think, we need to set some ground rules for you listening right now. Our mission today is not about getting rich.
Definitely not.
We aren't looking at historical stock market returns. We're not picking winning mutual funds. And we aren't talking about optimizing a retirement portfolio.
No, we're talking about the absolute most boring but literally life-saving financial tool in existence.
The emergency fund.
Yes, the emergency fund. The goal here is a total mindset shift for beginners.
Yeah, we need to move away from constantly chasing wealth and focus instead on securing a baseline of absolute, unshakable safety.
Because the brutal reality of personal finance is that you just cannot build a skyscraper on a swamp.
Right.
If we look closely at why the ordinary worker in our sources fell apart so spectacularly after just a few weeks of unemployment, it comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of what cash is actually for.
They fell for the illusion of stability.
And they viewed uninvested cash as a failure.
Okay, I have to admit, I was completely guilty of this beginner's mindset for years.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. I used to despise the idea of keeping cash in a bank account. I'd look at a couple $1,000s sitting in checking and think, what a massive waste of potential.
Because of inflation.
Exactly. The standard financial advice you hear shouted everywhere on the internet is that cash just sits there losing value to inflation. The cost of groceries goes up, your cash balance stays the same, so by definition, you're bleeding purchasing power.
That's the common wisdom, yeah.
Right, so my logic was, why wouldn't I invest every single spare dollar into the market so it doesn't just sleep in the bank?
And that logic is incredibly common, but the sources show it is uniquely dangerous for beginners.
How so?
Well, young people, especially when they first start taking their finances seriously, they get bombarded with this aggressive hustle culture message.
Oh, yeah. Make your money work for you.
Right. Money cannot just sit still. It must be working 204/7. It must be compounding. And while that is absolutely true for long-term wealth building, focusing purely on investment returns before you have built a foundational cash buffer leaves you incredibly fragile to everyday life.
Because life isn't a spreadsheet. Your portfolio doesn't just smoothly increase by 8% a year without real-world interruption.
Not at all. The sources actually map out the brutal mathematics of this fragility through something they call the domino effect of minor crises.
The domino effect. Walk me through that.
So think of living without an emergency fund like driving a car on a highway with 0 shock absorbers. If you have shock absorbers, hitting a pothole is just a slight bump. You spill a drop of coffee, you keep driving.
No big deal.
Right. But without them, that exact same pothole transfers all of its destructive kinetic energy straight into the chassis of the car. It shatters the axle.
So a minor inconvenience becomes a catastrophic failure.
Exactly. Let's look at a practical example from the research. You drop your smartphone and it shatters. Ugh, the worst.
Right. But if you don't have cash, you can't just walk into a store and buy a replacement. You're forced to put a $1,000 phone on a credit card or sign up for a high-interest installment plan.
And now you have a new monthly bill.
Yes. Then, a month later, you get a nasty flu, and you realize you literally cannot afford to take unpaid sick leave.